Moving.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Hello. Let's just see. Just going to put the gallery view on.
Yes,
It's
you can.
lovely. Awesome. Right. It's quite a few missing, but as they come, we take it. Welcome, everybody. It's so nice to actually see some faces to the names that I've been talking to. Hello, Chrissy. Lovely to see you too. Thanks for making it possible. Awesome. So I'm so happy that you're all embracing this new platform here, because being in circumstances like this gets us a whole new skill set, it seems like. So that's awesome. Right, so it's my first Zoom one, so you're all my firsts. How is that? Awesome. So I've really checked up on this, so bear with me. And I've been told to give you a little rundown how I do my one today. At the moment, you're all on mute. That means you all got to listen to me. So that works for me so far. But I'll let you know how we do this. So those that are new to this, at the bottom, there is little icons, little pictures. The chat one is going to be on right through. So if you have questions, there is this little chat bubble at the bottom. You can just press there and write your question, and it will come up on the side. Everybody in the chat can see it. So when it comes to to answering, or when I get to those, I can just pick it up from there instead of people talking in between. So I can just make sure I can tell you what I need to tell you, and then also answer accordingly without doing this all the time, because this is where the multitasking comes in. So feel free at any given time to write down the question in the chat window, and it comes up on the side. Then I will go with it kind of like through chapters, and in between there will be like question and answers as well. It is an introduction into the metaphysical causes of illness. So I'm trying to not get too complicated, but I can get a bit carried away. If I do, just chat window, say, Heike, slow down, or ask me to clarify things. It is an introduction. So let's get into this. I'm quite excited. So once again, welcome to everybody. I'm so happy to have you all here. If I talk too fast, which I have the tendency to do as well, please tell me. So yay, let's get into it. So the topic, metaphysical causes of illnesses. It always sounds so big, but metaphysical means nothing else but what's behind the physical. Our body doesn't just wake up one morning and think like, how can I give Heike a hard time tonight or today? Or what kind of havoc can I cause in Corin's life today? Or what am I going to do to Rebecca today? So that is all having some kind of root somewhere, because the physical is always in reaction to so many other things. And this is what we want to try to find, because if we can take the root away, the body doesn't have to react. So how does it actually work? The body reacts to our mental, to our emotional, and to our spiritual state. So in short, when we are in a good state, when we are happy, when things go our way, automatically we have more energy, we sleep better, we don't feel as sick, we have just generally, we feel on top of the world, and everything just runs better, works better, we look better, the skin looks better, the body reflects the state that we are in. When we have a horrible time, when we are frustrated, when we are depressed, when we are stressed, you can see that at a person from a mile away before you even know that as a fact, or you know that person, because the body will tell you a story, because it can only reflect what we hold. And because the emotional and the mental and the spiritual is all in our energy field, or the body can only tell that story. So what I mean with that is, so when one day we kind of like, I've got a bit of a tummy ache, we kind of like, yeah, well, it's not too bad. We ignore. We're very good at ignoring. And that's why we then wonder, because we only really listen when it hits us over the head, when it's so bad that we have no other option but listening, because it's somehow restricting us. Then that's when we start listening to our body. And as it says, when we start listening to our body when it whispers, we don't have to listen to it when it screams. So that means we can stop it way before we get shut down, but we need to learn to listen. Also, Listening is all good and nice, but if we don't know what it says, that ain't helping. And this is what this introduction is all about. All right. So also we're being taught as a society in general that the mind is its own entity, the body is its own entity, the soul is its own entity, and so on. So if something is wrong with you physically, you go to the doctor. If something is wrong with you mentally, you go to a psychologist, psychiatrist. If something is wrong with you on a spiritual point of view, I don't know, you see your priest, your rabbi, whatever belief system you belong to. But what they don't do is say it all belongs together, because the one goes into the other. Yet instinctively, we do that anyway. How come that when somebody is in hospital and is sick, we tell them, just keep a positive mind. Now, all of a sudden, the mind plays a role, even so the body is sick. So we instinctively know it somehow is connected, but then we drop the thought. How mothers are very good at that. We know when our kids say, I've got a tummy ache, we know if it's a real tummy ache, like a real physical thing, or if he or she is like maybe a bit thrown out or needs a bit like sidetracked or feeling a bit emotional. We instantly know which kind of tummy ache it is. So instantly and automatically, instinctively, we're using that knowledge that we have anyway. Does that make sense? But we don't question it, and then we drop it again, and we don't use it for us or others. So we automatically use it in some areas, but not in others. We also give it different names, like mother's instinct. Why is that instinct different when we use it for different people? The instinct is the instinct is the instinct. Survival instinct, for example, doesn't just happen when you're in South Africa, but not when you're in America. The instinct is the instinct is the instinct. It works. It's like your name doesn't change when you're in a different country. It's still your name. And it's the same with that. So this is all about paying awareness of bringing it together. And you will see it makes just so much sense because we're doing it anyway, but we're just not aware of it. Right, so let's get into it. I'm going to give a very brief like what to look at, and then we can literally look at examples to make it like more personal as well, because we all deal with it one way or the other anyway. So the first thing is like, okay, so we all have a body. That is already a given. Some work better than others, some creak and tweak a bit, especially right now with the cold weather, but we all have a body. And even to see how the weather and different outer influences affect us is quite interesting as well, but we will get there. So the first thing we're going to look at is like our body obviously has so many different layers. So let's look at the front and the back end of the body and what it means. So if something is showing up in the front of your body, it means something different than when it comes up on the back. Please play in mind that this 1.5 hours is a rough guideline. This whole field of metaphysics can be brought down to each individual muscle group, each individual whatever. It's not what we're doing. It's a general thing. So I'm going to try the split screen thing now to show you. If it doesn't work, we can just go straight to the next one. Let's see. Can you all see that chart? Right. So this is like the right and the left, the front and the back. So things on the right hand side of the body, we refer to the masculine side of the body. And this is things like the rational thinking, the decision making, the dominance, the standing in your power, the knowing what to do, the having a voice, that kind of thing. So all that we like traditionally refer to as male attributes are sitting on the right-hand side of the body. The left-hand side of the body is what we refer to as the female side of the body. This is like where intuition is, and nurturing and caring and the inner voice and what we would actually more associate with the feminine side of the thing. So already, depending on which side of the body we get more injured, and we're all prone to have one of our sides of the body more prone to injury than others. And if it's just bumping your hip into something or not, because they need to be both in balance. So we all, if you look at our personalities as well, some are more kind of like, this is me, this is what we do, whatever. They have an over enhanced male side, and maybe the female is a bit down, or the other way around. And that is already giving an indication what's a bit out of sync. Then also when you look at the chart, so as it said, it's the rational thought, the planning, logistic on the right. So when it comes to the right arm as well, it's like, what do we do with that? It's all about the doing, the making things happen, the actually like out there interacting with the world. It's about the giving as well. So it's all about the like, let's do this kind of thing. So the right hip then as well, it comes is about the moving forward. A very interesting fact is when we start walking, 99% of people start walking with the right leg. So even if we have to shift weight or the whole body, depending on how we stand or whatever, you will always start walking with the right leg first, which also refers to the right hand side of the body, hip and leg, about moving forward. So if anything happens in those areas, there's most likely some kind of issue or hesitation with moving forward. Then again, when you look at the chart again, the knees is about flexibility, because what does a knee do? It keeps us flexible, and we can't really move forward if we don't really have that flexibility, in the hip, which is our biggest joint, and then with the knee as well. The ankles is about support and ability to be present in the morning, because if I don't know where I am right now, I've got no idea where I'm going to go in future. And this is all it starts with. I am the right here and the right now, because lots of people plan in the future, but they don't even know where they're here, and then they dig deep holes. And this is kind of like not knowing who I am. A lot of that is happening at the moment due to the COVID-19 situation, because lots of decisions are made for us, and we have not much decision power, and we don't know where the next step is going to be, depending on how we get permission or not, and how we're being affected or not. So that is an area that's out a lot. So this is about the grounding, the being in the here and in the now. The left is, as I said, it's about the receiving. So it's like, if you have people, and I see there's lots of women here, men do that as well, but it's like when you give, but you're not very good at receiving, then most likely the left side of your body will be not as balanced, because giving is one thing, but receiving, if that isn't balanced, that's just an imbalance. So you're either over or under balanced, and it's very difficult to keep that balance, but it is very doable if we understand how the body works. So the left side from the hip to the leg is also about letting go of the past. Because as we say, the right hip and leg is about moving forward. Now, the body goes nowhere if the right part goes forward and the left doesn't follow. So wanting to move forward is a great thing. But if we can't let go of certain things of the past, we kind of like get stuck in the middle. We get stuck with one foot here and the other foot there, and we're not going anywhere. We are stuck. So the right is about the moving forward, and the left is about letting go of the past, flexibility thereof. And that can be patterns, environments, belief systems, people. So it can be a lot of things that comes in there. And then also trusting that where we're going to is safe. And this is also where comfort thinking and security safety comes in. So a lot of people at the moment, the joints play up more than ever before because of the circumstances, and we cannot be as flexible with our decisions as we would normally like to be. So this is where we are. I hope this is going out. Right, there we go. So just as a very, very brief, like where the left and the right comes in. Now, if we look at the front, it's like how we're facing the world, how we're taking it on. It's like, and the back is about the past and what we drag along and how heavy we feel it is or not. I mean, every second person nowadays has back problems, one way or the other. So depending on where in the back it plays out, it gives us indication. Again, what we're dragging along? What is wearing me down? What is still in my best interest or not? What is still serving me? Because what we keep on doing is we have things that we collected along the way, which we needed at specific times in our life, but we stop looking at them when we proceeded in life, and we keep on carrying and loading on, but we never do spring clean. What I needed when I was 15, because there was the circumstances accordingly, I don't need anymore now at 30 or 40, but we're still carrying it. And so we just pile on, and it will all somehow come up on the back. Does that make sense? Okay, there's also those reaction emoticons here at the bottom. It's the smiley face, and you can do a thumbs up if you follow. If I'm too fast, please let me know. You can just put on the chat thing. Okay, Karen missed the left foot. The left foot is about letting go of the past to move forward, because if the right foot moves forward but the left doesn't follow, you will get stuck. So very often this is also, I want to have new beginnings, but I'm scared it might not work as well as it is, so I'd rather take what I have, even though it's not ideal. That's fear-based. So it's kind of like what I have is established and I have a comfort zone, and it's kind of like there's a devil on the other side based on assumptions. So I want to go, but I'm not. But I will go, but I'm not. So this is this whole kind of like, and this is like where the left foot is about letting go of the comfort zone to embrace it, because otherwise we become our self-fulfilling prophecy, and we actually go like, I tried so hard, but it didn't work. Well, where was your left foot? So this is kind of like, and it does not mean we don't want it. We really do want it, but fear factors are high, especially nowadays, more so than ever. So this is where the left foot comes in. And then also depending if it's the ankle or the sole of the foot or all of that. But as I said, so far, it's a rough kind of rundown. So it's also, when you look at skin stuff, 80% of skin-related things are on the front of the body. Now, we have an equal amount of skin on the back of our body, but 80% of skin stuff is actually coming up on the front of our body. Why? Because this is what we face the world with. And the moment there is skin stuff going on, skin is the first line of impact between the outer and the inner world, because this is the first line where it connects with our physical body. So when the inner and the outer does not agree, there will be a disturbance in the first line of impact, which is skin. So depending on where my difficulty is or my speed bump is, that's where it will show up. So if it's like in the face, like acne and those kind of things, then it's like I've got difficulty facing certain things. If it's on the arm, for example, like with eczema, very often in hands and stuff like that. If it's in the right one, I've got difficulties with giving, or I'm giving too much and I'm getting the short end of the stick because it's not balanced. So it's mostly in the front of the skin. Chest areas. It's like if there is like skin stuff happening on the chest area, it's like, what am I not getting off my chest? Because now it's accumulating here. And it has to do with me not bringing it out to the outer world. So it's not just stuff that I need to like put into place for me internally, because then it would not show up as skin. The skin is the conflict with the outer and the inner not agreeing. This is us saying, yes, of course I do it. And your brain goes like, hell no, I don't want to do this. Why did my mouth say yes? And that's when it's kind of like, yeah, the outer and the inner is saying two different things. You want to please people, but actually I don't want to do that at all. But my fear of people disapproving of me is bigger than me actually going against my grain. So this is where skin comes in. And this is even though we have more or less the same amount of skin on the front and back of our body, 80% of skin disturbances, I want to call them, are actually in the front of the body. And it doesn't matter in which form, if it's eczema, if it's acne, if it's like whatever, even if it's injuries with it, it's predominantly in the front of the body. So just as a little indication with that. And it is actually when we just look, what is the basic function of whatever is affected at the moment, it makes a lot of sense. What is skin doing? It's the outer layer of our physical body. It gives us the first line of information how to experience the world. So that means something's already clashing here. Can you imagine how much it's going to clash on the other layers that's still to come if it's already clashing on the outer layer? So this means like there is so much more attached to it when it's now become a skin disease, so to say. I don't like the word disease, but you know what I mean. So the front of the body is also our social mass. It's like what we want the world to believe. This is also like why the whole makeup thing comes in as well. It's like, of course we could all sit here, especially like with this whole video kind of stuff and everything, and sit here with pajamas and no makeup and whatever, and don't comb our hair. And I'm actually glad so many more people are embracing it now during this whole lockdown thing, because they're kind of like, why do I bother? It's like actually true, why do we bother? But it is important to us that we perceived in specific ways. Now, when I speak to my family, I am sitting in my pajamas and no makeup, but because I'm like if I'm like in a work capacity, then obviously I want to present myself in a work capacity. So If you want to put it like that, yes, I'm putting a mask on because this is like professional hike, or this is like I want to share knowledge. And if I sit here with pajama, you're most likely not going to take me very seriously. So that's why no pajamas. Or normally like what I did in lockdown, at least not pajama tops, because that's what you can see. So there's always some kind of variation where you can bend the rules, but the ones that are visible, because it's about how we want the world to perceive us. So you're not going to see the lower part of me, so I'm only going to like dress up the bottom, the top part. But this is what we do to do that. So it's also when we look at how we feel about our state and how our worthiness is the right word within a society. You see when somebody walks into a room and you don't know that person from a bar, so you can see if this person is confident, if this person is intimidated, if this person feels shy, or whatever it might be, because it's instantly showing. So you can have 5 layers of makeup on and the most expensive clothes, that will still show. Because where it might take like a little bit away from it, the base is there in the body posture and the movements, the way that we move and all of that. So the body will always give it away. The body cannot lie. We can lie to ourselves, but the body cannot lie because it will only ever react to the true energy that's there. So as much as we try to dress it up or down or give it different names and whatever, it will still directly only ever mirror the true energy that we are holding. Body cannot lie. It's kind of like somebody, you ask somebody, how are you doing? They're like, I'm fine. And your head goes like, yeah, right. Technically they look fine, but you instantly know if they're not. And it's not necessarily that you can pinpoint at that second what made you think that, but you know, because what they say and the energy that they bring your way is not matching. That's what kids are so good at, and animals, because they don't overthink it. They take it straight at energy. They kind of, you can't fool them. So like, oh, mom is fine. You're like, yeah, right. And all of a sudden they get very clingy, not because they're needed, but because what you tell them and what they feel is not matching, and you're actually confusing them. So this whole protecting kids and telling them something different is actually counter-effective, but that's a different topic. So when we look at like the sides of the body and the top, the front, top as well, but the front and the back, it already gives us an indication of it. Now, also if you look at it, what's the tummy area, and everybody's very worried about their tummies nowadays, especially with all the eating and lockdown, and everybody starts baking and cooking and everything else and starts eating junk food and all of that. Yet, as much as we can make jokes about it, and partially it is funny because I'm also one of those that made pancakes 10 o'clock at night, so don't worry. But what it actually is, again, is like if you look in the tummy area, the digestive tract is where all our emotions are actually stored. So the solar plexus, does everybody know where the solar plexus is? Okay, wait, there is like, I've got this little okie here. So this is, the solar plexus area is here. So it's like by your sternum, and this is the tummy area as well. Can you all see that? So this here where the tummy area is the solar plexus. And this is where we run all our emotions through. So where traditionally says emotion runs through the heart, no, they don't. Because when you are in love, where are the butterflies? In the heart or in the tummy? They're in the tummy. When somebody betrays you, you feel it like a kick in the gut, not in the chest. So when we fib a bit and stuff like that, where do we feel it? Right here, not in the chest. So it's in the gut. Anything to do with feeling. When we're nervous, we get a knot in the stomach, not in the heart. So anything emotional, no matter if good or bad, anything emotionally runs through the gut. So with that, the first thing we do is the moment we're under some kind of emotional turmoil or trauma or whatever we want to call it, the first thing we do is change our eating habits. Because what the brain does, it's kind of like saying, okay, I'm not feeling good in that area. So, but it doesn't really understand the energy field, the brain. So the next best system to the area that I feel not good in is the digestive system. So it will try and manipulate the digestive system to shift that. Does that make sense? So you then either start eating all kind of junk food, or we stop eating, or we start craving weird things, because now the brain tries to budge this feeling of us not feeling okay, or feeling overwhelmed, or feeling rejected, or feeling whatever, guilty. Guilt also sits there. It all sits there. Self-worth, all of that sits in the solar plexus. This is why the tummy nowadays is more affected than anything else. No, I've never heard of that much irritable bowel syndrome and all those kind of things. And it's like, because if you look at those that have that, those are the ones that are either very easily in an emotional roller coaster, or have self-worth and confidence issues. And I'm not saying that as a way of judging them, but it can only come from that. So, and that will always go into the gut. But before it became irritable bowel syndrome, it was a tummy ache here and there, which was ignored as simply not known how to interpret it. And then it became more, and then it was all of a sudden everybody has, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. Well, you could eat it for over 30 years. All of a sudden you're allergic to everything. Don't you think there might be another trigger? No, I just can't have wheat. Okay, and I can't have dairy. Okay, and I can't have this. Okay, so from 30 years fine to you can't eat anything in under 2 months, but it wouldn't have to do that you just got divorced. No. Okay, fine. So some people are ready for it, some are not. But it's like we need to start bringing mind, body, and soul together, because they always feed off each other. And what happens is, like, it's this triangulation of mind, body, and soul. If the mind is out of sync, the other two start feeding into it. So they constantly exchange energy. So when one is short, the other two help out. But if we don't start actually balancing it out, they will sooner or later also run short. That's why very often when we have something for long enough, we don't ever just have one thing. So this is why sooner or later, because more things start getting depleted. So let's see, what about skin acne on the back? This has got to do with issues from the back that you have not been dealing with. And depending of if it's on the upper, the middle, or the lower back, it will indicate where the trigger might be, like either not having been supported, or abandonment issues, or self-worth issues, or fundamental belief systems that have been challenged. So that is where it comes from. So when you get something, you take it apart. So what does skin problem mean? It means, okay, outer and inner is bashing. Okay, where is it? On the back. So it's an outer and an inner issue, bashing that comes from the back. And then we need to look, when does it flare up? Because then we're exposed to the trigger. So we can actually bring it down, but I give you a step-to-step how to decipher or to bring it down when I've run it past those main things to look out for. It's actually very logical. That's what I like about it. There's no funny hoo-ha about it. It's like very like, if it's A, then it must go to B. If enough to B, then so it's very easy to use. So also the back is also about when not just letting go of certain burdens and stuff, but also role definition. Our role definition is on the back as well. So for example, when we've been taught as kids that kids can be heard but not be seen, and you're not allowed to be heard, you haven't got a voice, or girls have to play that roles and guys can only play that roles, and that kind of thing sits on the back as well. And again, depending if it's more on the right or on the left, this is also got to do more with your male definition or with your female definition. So very often, for example, males that have back issues will more have them on the left if they've been brought up with extremely traditional belief systems, like you've got to be the man in the house and you can't show weakness, and you've got to bring the money in and you wah, wah, wah. They were not really allowed, it wasn't encouraged. Does not mean they weren't left, but they weren't encouraged to show their emotional side or have the right to have them. So they learned to suppress them. So or vice versa, but they will then more show up on the left-hand side of, because the suppression of the emotional side, which sits on the left-hand side of the body. Or like in another extreme, like a female being brought up in another extreme, like women know your place. You always have to do what a man says, and you have to be in the kitchen barefoot, pregnant, rhubarb, but you pretty much have no say or whatever. You normally find them having an issue towards the lower back on the right. Fundamental belief system, not being able to stand in your power, not feeling worthy enough to make decisions. So this has got like your worthiness and you being able to speak up. And they most likely also have lung chest, because speaking up will always be a problem. And but that is where the back comes in with that. So this is the front and the back at this stage. And I'm also just quickly doing one more chart. I'm not doing too many because it's just going to get confusing and I don't want to do that. Just to give a bit more insight on that. And this whole thing is being recorded and is somehow available afterwards, but Chrissy will tell you that. Right, let me just get that other chart up. So did I got that right? Okay, let's see, chart number 2. And wait, it's the wrong one, clearly. No, man, sorry, bear with me. Darn, there we go again, Heike did it. Now I've got it on full screen and I don't know how to get rid of it. Just when I said I'm chuffed, obviously had to be that way. So stop sharing, here we go. No, not shopping. So I'm going to bring this up now, but this is also more telling you that you would, the fear center is as well then linked to the solar plexus. So this is also where the food comes in and the digestive system. And you will also see when we're under stress, our bowel movements change. And that has to do with if it's too much for us to digest and it's like we can't take it anymore, we feel overwhelmed, we have the tendency to a runny tummy. And when we start micromanaging out of fear, then we normally have constipation, because it's like we're holding on to stuff, we don't let anything, so we're literally holding on, excuse me, you're holding on to shit. And when it's too much for us, everything just goes through. So it's just like, I don't know what's good or what's bad for me anymore, everything is just going through. Okay, this is not happening here, sorry people. So yeah, I will also then put something on some stuff on my page afterwards, because clearly I'm not getting this done here. I'm sorry about that. So I'd rather keep it on the video. Sorry. But so throat is roughly about, it's about expression. So what does the throat do? Obviously without the throat, we cannot speak. So people that have constantly throat infections, laryngitis, those kind of things, got problems with expressing themselves. So it can either be that they feel they're not worthy being heard, or that they feel it's not safe being heard, or that literally the environment doesn't make space for it. So I don't want to give you the impression that we don't know what you do and be weak or whatever when they show up, because while we don't speak up can have different reasons. So sometimes you've got to bite our tongue. Sometimes we want to tell our bosses off and it might not necessarily be the best idea, but we really want to. And this is why you will also need to pay attention when you have throat related stuff going on. Where does it play up the most? Because it will play up the most when you are exposed to the trigger. So when you have more like stuff going on or whatever, when you're at work, you know your trigger is there. And you're kind of okay at home with it. I only have it every now and then when it's not really there. So it's like it will always play up the most when you are exposed to your trigger. So pay attention when it plays up. Because you have people that only ever have migraines and stuff when they are at work. And they're not playing it. They definitely do have it, because this is their main stress. This is like where they not feel good enough, where they're like, I don't know, being maybe verbally abused or whatever. We don't know, but the main stress is there and they feel like it's not safe. It's like, oh gosh, and then they have to shut down and overthink it, because they're constant like, oh, I don't want to do anything wrong. I don't want to do anything wrong. And there comes the migraine. And I normally start Sunday evening when they know they have to go on Monday, because they're prepping it already. The mind is already there. So this is like, oh God, now I have to go back. So, and because the mind cannot differentiate between fake and fiction, fact and fiction, it's already the thought of it will trigger it. And what I mean with the brain cannot differentiate between fact and fiction is, like anxiety attacks, for example. There is no factual reason, yet we can entirely shut our entire system down with the thought of it. So I'm thinking that I'm under complete, I'm under attack and this is all gonna go wrong and I'm gonna drop dead and whatever. That is enough for my brain to give the signals to the body to react accordingly, to shut me down. It will spike the blood pressure, it will up the acid levels. I will literally have a breakdown, even though, because there is no factual reason, which means the body does not know the difference. So this whole fake it till you make it is actually way more handy than you think, because what we tell ourselves becomes our reality. It's that same thing with like, oh, the flu is going around. The moment everybody runs off to get their flu shot, oh my God, I'm gonna get flu. Those are the ones that can just as well stock up on oranges and vitamin C because they will get it because they just decided they're gonna get it. So they just open up that line wide. And I'm not saying flu shots in generally, by all means, do what you need to do. But the moment I align myself with something, I don't need to be surprised when it comes my way. And this is also where hereditary comes in. And again, this is my opinion and from my research and what I believe in. Hereditary as such does not exist. And this is normally when I get shut down, because what we inherit is actually the belief system and not the actual disease as such. So if we look, for example, at breast cancer, theoretically looking at hereditary, if a mother that has breast cancer has 3 daughters, hereditary, all 3 of them should get breast cancer, if we follow the proper definition of hereditary. Yet, let's say only one of them might get it. So what happened? But I can most likely tell you that the one that did end up getting breast cancer was the one that was fretting about it the most, because from day one, it was put into girls that you've got to be extra careful. Your mom had breast cancer, so you're more prone to have breast cancer, and you have to have extra checks, and you have to do this and you have to do that. So it's actually, the frequency was built nicely to actually make space for it. And you will find out of those 3 girls, the one who's like, I'm not bothered about that. I will watch out for stuff, but I'm not going to drive myself crazy. That's the one's not having it. So this whole hereditary as such is the belief system, more so than if we all have cancer cells in our body, but who decides how we activate them or not? So hereditary in its truest form does not exist in my eyes. By all means, do your own research on it and everything, but I've never come across it. But if I spend most of my life going like, I don't want to get breast cancer, I don't want to get breast cancer, I'm breast cancer, all the universe hears is breast cancer, breast cancer, breast cancer, plus I'm creating a beautiful, cushy kind of environment and energy already for it, of course I will activate it. What we concentrate on is what we invest in, is what we're going to get. So, and this is my view on hereditary. So this is where this comes in. So when it comes like, well, oh, I know I'm going to get a heart problem because my father, my grandfather had it. Okay, so you want to have it. You know, I will get it. Why? Because they had it. So that is assuming you have no say in this. So, and this is where we need to take charge of that again, because the body's in reaction to us. So the body is the dashboard light. It's not like if the dashboard light goes on in your car and the oil lamp comes on, then you don't go like, oh my God, now I'm going to have to live with this oil lamp for the rest of my life because I can't do anything about it. But no, you can. And you have many options. You can ignore it, or you can argue with the dashboard light. Why is it there? Why must it be in my car? Or you can go check the oil, or you can call somebody and check it for you. But if we know what it is there for, we now have options. Or we can say like, I'm just can't do anything. So that means sooner or later I'm gonna get it. Well, if you ignore the oil long enough, something else is going to happen, because nothing else can happen because you didn't activate anything else. So this whole like we don't have any power over it, we need to step away from that, because we have all the power of it. And this is why this is so incredibly important that we understand at least the basics of metaphysics. Everything is there, we somehow co-created that. Not because we want it necessarily, but we didn't understand that we co-created it. So, but it's definitely, we have way more say in that than the medical industry or many others, or ourselves actually believe. And I don't want to make it out that the medical industry is all wrong. Of course not. Not with everything. They're great for diagnostics, but they have their place in many ways. And this is everybody's individual choice, but it doesn't stop or end there. Because what my worry is about the medical industry is they only treat the surface. They do not help remove the core. It means it can only resurface. So at best it can buy you time, but as long as you don't get to the core, where's it supposed to go? So, so it has its place that it can buy you time until you get there, whatever, to make it more comfortable, to get rid of some symptoms that it's easier for you to deal with the rest. But this medical things, it's all going to go away. No, it won't. It can't. So unless you treat mind, body, and soul, nothing can go away because it hasn't been treated properly. Does that make sense? I need to look at the time here that I don't run away with it. So chakras and stuff like that is also playing a lot of thing with that, but I don't want to get too far into it because it's a whole different issue. So yay, Denise, there we go. Because the chakras as well as our main energy centers, and there's again like my other half calls them sorrow, with the 7 main chakra centers, because and this is just a simplified chakra center. We've got hundreds and thousands of them, but those are just the 7 main chakras about it. So the whole thing behind it is universal energy comes in through the crown of our head, goes through the third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus, sacral, and out the base, out by the sole of our feet. And this is what we refer to as being grounded. So ideally, energy comes in here, connects everything out of the sole of our feet, and everything runs nice and smooth. And those are all little energy centers. You can see them like it's little kind of like hurricanes in each of those spots, and they're constantly clearing out what shouldn't be there to keep it all smooth. So they're like mini vacuum cleaners, so to say. Yet, when we overload them, they can't do their job. And this is then when it starts getting a bit pear-shaped and things get out of sync. So when one of those starts going out of sync, it does not mean we drop dead, but the others start compensating. So this is always why then mostly more than one is out of sync. So when the solar plexus is out, when we have digestive issues, then because the digestive issues are also linked to emotional, how I feel about myself and self-worth, then most likely the heart one will be out as well, because we are not balanced in self-love. So those two will most likely come up together. The most challenged at the moment, due to our outer circumstances with the COVID and the corona and all of that, is the base one. And the base one has to do with standing in the here and the now, but it has to do with our fundamental identification, our tribal identification, our fight and flight, our fundamental security and safety, and all of that is being threatened at the moment, and it's out of our hand. So it's about our decision making is in big rates not in our hand right now. So our very fundamentals are being challenged, and that's all of it sits here in the base and root chakra. This is also where we feel abundant, and that we feel like we're in the flow, and that even if it's like obstacles, we can deal with it. And when that is out, like right now, when it's universally, globally challenged, like right now, this is going to be out. So what's happening right now, and we can see it quite clearly, it's like then fight or flight hits in, and that shows out like at the moment you can get people either very chilled, very depressed, or very aggressive. So because it will trigger those things. It's kind of like my base is challenged. So either bite your head off, and they want to like chop your head off because you're wearing the mask 2 centimeters on the wrong side or whatever. Or so it's like they're not arguing, they're shoving things down your throat. They have a mob mentality because anything negative will find each other as well. So those are like on the internet that you're on Facebook and stuff that just get together and like the vocabulary accordingly and whatever. So it's pure aggression, it's pure attack. And that comes from because their baseline is challenged. The others fall into complete depression and anxiety and meltdowns because they feel completely that they have no influence on this. It's going to be doomsday, and they have the flight ones. And you have those that are kind of like just disconnect. That's the free state. And this is all because it's the fundamental stuff in our finances, and our fundamental structure is at the moment being, and this is also, and I found quite interesting, why South Africa is so incredibly up in arms about the alcohol and the cigarettes, because these two are linked to alcohol and cigarettes. So each of the chakras has different kind of addictions attached to it as well. And the base is about the cigarettes fall into there as well. So this is double aggravating. So, that's where this is coming in as well. So if you look at it, sometimes they have more velocity about the cigarettes than they actually have about losing their jobs, because it feeds straight into the base chakra. And as much as those that don't smoke will say, but that makes no sense, the velocity is out. It makes complete sense energetically, because that all feeds into here. And when this is out, we're looking for quick fix, and the quick fix for here is nicotine. Also some other harder drugs, but nicotine, the legal drug, let's put it that way, comes in here. And the alcohol comes in here with the solar plexus. That's why you very often find emotional people have more the tendency to drink than to other kind of addictive substances. So that sits in the solar plexus as well. So that's, I found quite interesting, the reaction of South Africa when that, I mean, I still think it's nonsense, but that doesn't matter. But just to look at how it played out and how people reacted to it. So I go into structures, which is going to be a 5 minutes one, and then we can put some questions in. So also depending on the body, what plays up is like, because the body is obviously made of hard tissue like bones. And then we have soft tissues and we have fluids. So when it comes to there's the sun shining, sorry. When it comes to the bones in the body, it's obviously our hardest structure. So whenever the bones are being injured, that means it has got to do about fundamental core beliefs. That's when the bone goes. So it's not just like, oh, since last week I thought that and it's not applying anymore. That wouldn't show up in a broken bone. That wouldn't show up in something splintering or splattering. So when the bones come, it's about fundamental belief systems and core beings. It's literally on soul level who we are. As an example, let's lose my mom. 2 months ago, she fell and she broke her left shoulder, and she splintered that shoulder in so many pieces that she had to have an op, and she had to have a whole shoulder replaced. Now, my mom is the typical kind of person, is the mother hen for everybody, but doesn't look after herself, which obviously everybody tells her, but she wouldn't have it. So here we go. So she is completely not seeing to herself on an emotional level, left-hand side, carrying everybody else's burdens, shoulder, but not her own, refuses, even though the environment would want her to, refuses to see to her own, and identifies herself as long as everyone else is okay, I'm okay, which is her choice. You can take a horse to water, even if it's my beloved mom. So she fell and absolutely shattered that shoulder, that she was finally having to have 2 operations, and in Germany, where she is, there after the operation, they sent them away on physical rehab for 6 weeks. So she had to go to such extent till she finally took 6 weeks out for herself, and she had no other option in it. So she had to splinter every bone in that shoulder where she carried everybody else's stuff but hers out of choice to finally take time for herself. So this is fundamental belief system. If I don't serve others, I'm not good enough. I identify myself through others. As long as I don't give, then it's not good enough. So it's like, let me look at everyone else and I don't have to look at my own. And I adore her, don't get me wrong, but this is what the body was telling. And she wouldn't have it. And there we go. Now she had to have it. And this is where it comes back to. If we don't listen to when the body is whispering, we're gonna have to listen when it shouts. And this is what I mean with the bones, is fundamental stuff. It's not just I ignore it for a week, I look after others and not myself. That was a lifetime. And my mom turned 70 today. So, and she broke it 2 weeks ago. So that is like 69 years of that belief system activated. So this is about our deepest and core being fundamental belief systems and blueprints that we take along. Then we have the soft tissues, which is like the flesh, the fat. I'm going to come to fat now. Organs, the muscles, the ligaments, the nerves. So everything that's smooshy, so pretty much is the soft tissues. And they're about our attitude and our thinking patterns. It's about the psychological attitude of thinking patterns, because that can change as we go. So they're a bit more harder than just come and go, but they're not as fundamental as the bones. So when it comes to that, this is like thoughts and experiences that directly influence us. So also, and this is when I'm coming to fat is protection layers. So it's like when we have any kind of like stress or traumatic experience or unhealthy living circumstances, the brain cannot differentiate between fact and fiction. So if you're constantly unhappy and constantly overextending ourselves, it has the exact same response than when we're under attack. So when we're under attack, it number one releases a lot of acid. Number two, it completely overloads the glandular system and so on. But what it does, it puts on fat. It stores fat as a buffer zone, because obviously we're under attack, we need a buffer zone. So then what happens is, because we're already not in a good space, now we put on fat. So that is going to be a next problem. Now we're trying to desperately get rid of it, because now we feel even more horrible because we put on fat. And then we go yo-yo dieting. And why that will only ever be yo-yo dieting is unless the brain starts giving the body the thing like, we're actually okay, we're not under attack, it can't work. It will still hold on. So you might be in the best, you have the best food diet thing, in the best exercise workout, but you're telling the body, let go, but your brain says, under attack. So it can at best be a yo-yo. It cannot be long-lasting weight loss, because your problem was actually not about you putting on weight. Your problem is that you somehow don't feel safe. So when we are in a good place, and then when we are in a more, and it doesn't even have to be deliriously happy, just like a neutral even will do. We will automatically have our weight better under control, because then also the comfort eating doesn't come in. Remember, when the emotions are out, the eating is out. Then acid levels are out. So there's always this whole ripple effect. And this is where the fat comes in. So when it comes to that, it's got to do with our thinking patterns and our attitude. And attitude doesn't just mean bad, but how we feel in reaction to the life that we're living in, the circumstances. But also stuff from the past and traumas and shocks and sadness is also going into our skin. When somebody walks in the room, you can see if they had a hard life or not. It shows in the skin, especially. It's soft tissue. So this is where that is layered in as well. So it's literally also, we tense and release muscles accordingly, depending on what state we are in emotionally. So when we relax, the body is relaxed. When we tense those, like this is why most of the neck, shoulder issues are with people nowadays, because it's constantly like, let me not do this long, let me not cock that up, let me meet that expectation, this expectation, whatever. So we're constantly doing this, and we have tensed muscles. Yet when we're on holiday and chill, we're very relaxed. So we also automatically change how we use our muscles, ligaments, and soft tissues according to how we are emotional. So ultimately, the emotions run the body. So the emotions actually determine how healthy we are or not. Now, the emotions are linked to a thought. So it's kind of like, oh, I put on 5 kg, so I can go like, oh my God, that's the end of the world. My husband will leave me. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to need new clothes. Nobody will ever love me again, and go in a complete frenzy. And I can promise you those 5 kgs will go nowhere. Or I can go like, oh, put in 5 kgs, darn, I had a good holiday. So, and that's it. So let me just go, let me eat sensibly and off I go. And it will slowly but surely go again, because I'm not attaching anything else to it, but it's like, oh, it's just an extra fat because I had a few too many pina coladas and ice creams. And that's about it. But my attachment to it is not negative. So I'm not fighting against it. I'm acknowledging it's like, darn, those 5 kgs were worth it. And with that, I'm releasing it. So, and then obviously don't eat pizzas 10 times a day, but you don't have to do extreme dieting either. And it will go, because the attachment and emotion that comes with it is different. And this is where soft tissue is at. And also what we need to be careful with is the identification with it. If I'm fat, I'm no good. If I'm thin, I am good. So it's how it's again, our attitude and identification with it. Fat is fat is fat. It's neutral. Till you, like anything, till you attach something to it. In some environments and in some cultural backgrounds, we would be completely celebrated as some kind of semi-gods if we would be big or small, depending on which we are. So what is our attachments to it? Third structure is the liquid, so to say, in our body. So it's blood, urine, water, saliva, all of those liquids in our body, stomach acid stuff, all of that, they're all linked to feelings directly. So they are, if you look at it, feelings directly, and if you look at blood, for example, I mean, we are 94% made out of some kind of liquid. If it's from the blood to whatever in the body. So like somebody said, we're really just cucumbers with complicated emotions. Because we have so much fluids in it. But the fluids are about the emotion, and the one that we have the most of is blood. And where is the blood coming from, and what keeps the blood going? The heart. So it's all about the emotion stuff. So yeah, we may be just cucumbers with really big hearts, which makes kind of sense, because we just make things way more complicated than they need to be. So where that is coming from, it's also, if you look at blood pressure, if we're happy and we're okay, the blood pressure is okay. If we are hyped up and stressed and whatever, blood pressure spikes. And what's normally also quite a good indication, if you have somebody with high blood pressure, there's always some rage or anger issues. So they either are that are very explosive and they let it out, or they are tending to be very explosive and trying too hard to actually keep it in. Either way, what happens, the moment we are very angry, we spike our heart rate that comes with it. So 80% that I would say, those that have high blood pressure are normally explosive natures. So because what do? We have that, and then I get my panties and I'm not like, whoa, up we go with the heart pressure and everything. And then I level it. And because I trigger very quickly and several times a day, and where it comes through very often is in the construction industry, and these guys need to relax. So, because there's one yelling after the other happening, and they're really just blowing it up everywhere. So, and this is high blood pressure where it comes in. Low blood pressure is, I am not being balanced enough. I'm not having enough to keep myself balanced, and I'm actually not having enough, I'm not challenging myself enough, and challenging in a good way. So I'm not allowing myself to grow. So I need to keep like too much of a low profile in order not to aggravate. And does not mean that I have a horrible partner, but I've got that perception that if I open my mouth unnecessarily, or if I want too much or say too much or be too much in any way or form, I will somehow upset something somewhere along the way, which comes in very often out in low blood pressure. And since we had that, let me just go into diabetes. Diabetes is about the lack of sugar of life. And what is the sugar of life? It's joy, happiness, everything pretty much that blows our hair back. So if you look at people that have diabetes, and again, it's not a judgment of good or bad. It's people that don't have much joy or happiness in their life. It's either people that are too duty bound, or it's like the mother hen, the martyrs, and or it is people that only chase the career and nothing else. There is no balance. There is nothing that feeds them. or they are in extremely unhappy long-term relationships, but they hold themselves, but I'm a mother, I need to be in there, or I'm the father, but I need to hold on for the kids kind of thing. So the moment we have diabetes, there is a lack of sugar of love. And sugar of love is, in translation, what feeds us as soul beings: love, happiness, laughter, the lightness of life. That's what the sugar of life is. So this is where diabetes comes in. And depending on which level it is or how severe it is, it shows you for how long it is already going on. Because nobody starts on day one with the worst stage of it. So diabetes is always, again, if you look at it, what does diabetes stand for? My sugar levels are out. So what is sugar? What is sugar in life? What brings you joy? And this is why I love the Afrikaans expression zomer, because we need to have more of those, because it's for no other reason, because it feeds all the right stuff. So we need to do more summer stuff. That's the best remedy for diabetes and stuff like that, but you don't get a script for that. So then people think it's not justified. So, but yeah, do more summer stuff, because that's where diabetes comes from. Joints. Joints is about flexibility, not allowing yourself to be flexible enough, or the environment not allowing it, or it doesn't matter what to serve, but it's not being flexible enough. Because what do the joints do? They keep that body part, the hand, the knee, whatever it is, flexible. And whenever you have people with hip replacements, don't ever let them tell you that they're the most flexible people. Their main joint has given up on them. What do you think happens with their personality? So hip is about, it's the main joint. It's the main joint in your body that keeps you flexible. So people that have very black and white kind of mindsets, and it's my way or the highway, very often have hip problems, because it's the main joint, and they dig their heels in. And when we dig in heels, we lock the hip. And so that joint will be affected the most. So depending on where the joints lock, also gives an indication where it is. So if it's in the right hand, it's about the giving, either too much or not enough. If it's the left, it's about the receiving. If it's the hands, the hip is about the my way or the highway, or fear of moving forward. So if that can be either due to traumatic or general fear, or it doesn't matter. So that's where the hip comes in. So when we look at like how we're going to bring all of this together, is like, where on the body is it? How does it play up? Which kind of structure of the body is it? And how does it affect me? Because when I say how does it affect me, I mean, like, some people are making friends with their illnesses. They define themselves through it. And it's kind of like, because for some it's a very, very practical excuse. And I'm not saying that the illness isn't there, but lots of them don't know who they are without it, because they gain something through. And I'm not saying consciously, I'm not accusing anybody of that. But for example, it's kind of like, I know somebody, and she's like, oh, I've got lupus and fibromyalgia, I can't do this, and I can't do that, and I feel the weather, and I can't go here, and I can't do there. And it's like, what are you doing about it? Besides telling every single body, from this supermarket packer person to whoever else doesn't want to hear or didn't ask. It's like, so she is defining herself entirely through her sickness. So, and I said to her the other day, well, if you wouldn't tell people about your sickness, what would you tell them? She wouldn't know, because she made it all about the sickness and how it affects and what you can't do. So I said, if you have like 3 new people here right now, and I want you to tell them about yourself, what would you tell them? And she was stumped, because her sickness became her story. And she wasn't even aware of it. And she's a lovely person in many ways, by all means. She wasn't even aware to which extent that became her identity. And I think very often that happens with lots of us. And it does not mean it takes over the entire identity. But she had some kind of payout from it. She got a certain attention from it. She had a story that was acceptable. She had a story that she thought was now worthy being heard in connection with her, because she thought she was not worthy to be heard before that, or not interesting enough without that. So she thought she had her headline there, and that's what she automatically, because it must obviously be something people want to hear. So it had a certain payout for her, which she thought she couldn't get any other way. It was all subconscious thing that is now brought to the awareness, and she's trying to deal with it differently. But this is also where very often when we, especially there's quite a few people here that are also doing some kind of healings and stuff like that, very often people are not prepared to let go of it as yet, because that is part of it as well. So we need to look at it as well. Not everybody is ready to be healing themselves, because we don't heal people, they heal themselves. So to heal themselves, because they are too much identifying with it. So it is kind of like a twofold. That's why mind, body, and soul always needs to be addressed at the same time, because it's so intricately involved with each other. I mean, how often, very often with old people, we have that as well. They become their story. Everything is horrible, and this is no good, and today I had a runny tummy, and then I had a headache, and then my eyes are wrong, and then I make a career out of seeing the doctor, and that becomes their outing, and that becomes their social life, and then they think up of another thing, because this is their way of getting attention. This is their way of somehow feeling worthy and being heard, not because they have to, but that seems to be the most acceptable and the one with the quickest outcome. Never mind that they drive half the environment crazy with it, it's still worth it to them. Because we only ever do things for two reasons. Either we want the feeling or we want to avoid a feeling. And whatever we feel is our biggest payout, we go for. So even though they wouldn't know, maybe I'm queuing off so-and-so, but 6 people give me the feedback that I want, I queue off 5, worth it. So, and not in a nasty way, but they feed their energies. It's over half of this doesn't run on a conscious level. So to sum it all up here quickly, and actually there's one thing as well, we use the right words with the right sayings. In English is wonderful, because I haven't really found it in any other kind of language before. It's like when we, for example, say, I can't get it off my chest. That's like people having some chest issues, or have when they get, let's say, the flu. It doesn't always have to be something sinister that goes into their chest area first, or then they have asthma, or generally people that have issues with expressing themselves, they will most likely have the chest area as the area that is more prone to be out of sync. Or when like, oh, that's too much for me to digest. Digestive area, here we go. The pain in the neck, he or she's a pain in the neck. Well, there we go. And it's like, we're saying like, supporters in the back, for example, as well. But we say becomes our reality. I can't get him or her off my back. Well, guess what's going to play up sooner or later? It's kind of like, or literally, excuse my language, he or she's giving me the shits. Well, guess who's going to have a runny tummy? Or the so-called pain in the ass. Well, hemorrhoids, where you think they're coming from? Painful, and they just don't want to go. Yes. But somehow we made space for them. So there they are, the pain and the proverbial. So, but it doesn't have to be complicated. We use it all the time. So it's kind of like, he or she's giving me a headache. Guess what? You will most likely get a headache. He's like, I can't get him out of my ear. Guess what? It's like, oh, there's like, he or she broke my heart. We literally know by now that people can die of a broken heart. So all of this kind of thing, we need to, or he or she is grinding me. Teeth grinding, literally. So, or I've really got to chew on that. How often do you guys bite your tongues? So that's literally that. So it's like things we don't pay attention to, but it happens all the time. Or then we kind of like bite on the lip, like when you do stuff, it's fighting. When we have teeth issues, or teeth is another story altogether, depending also like each tooth says something, but biting off more than we can chew. So where would that show up? In the teeth area. So there is no coincidences ever. It's always the body trying to tell us a story. And the body is always the last stop in the warning system. By then we've already overlooked several kind of like little nudges from like, I should do that, and we dismiss it. Or like our inner voice says this, or maybe even half the family members say it, it doesn't matter, but we wave it off. So the voice has to become louder and louder and louder till it's there. This whole cancer thing going on, which is going crazy, it's because we don't pay attention to ourselves. The body starts eating itself because we don't feed ourselves accordingly. And it's not just food. We don't feed our souls, we don't feed our emotions, we don't feed ourselves, but we expect our body to work like clockwork. And depending where in the body the cancer, what kind of cancer it is, this shows where we're eating ourselves up, because this is what cancer does, it eats us up. So if it's like breast cancer, it's about self-nurturing, self-love. This is where breast cancer comes in. Then if it's like with the guys, prostate cancer, over-identification with their roles. I should be this, but I'm doing that, so I'm not good enough for this, I'm not providing enough, I'm not doing this. And then with that comes a lot of authority issues as well, that they either undershoot it or feeling over-responsible, or those kind of things which they don't allow themselves in prostate cancer. There we go, where they are not allowing to feed themselves and say, I can have my ups and my downs, doesn't make me less or more like a man. I mean, bladder infections. I mean, guys and women have the exact same bladders. How come 80% of the bladder infections are with women? They function the exact same way with both genders. Why are they with women? Because we have different ways of processing stuff. When we're pissed off, guess what's happening? We get urinary tract infections. Yet we being told, the women, we've been told from small, don't sit on cold steps, don't do this, don't do that. Boys just go and do what they want. They have the same flippin' bladder. Works the exact same way, does the exact same job, but because they don't stress on it, it's like why they don't build that pathway. And we were also told to keep the peace. So you will find people that have constantly bladder issues are the ones that are constantly trying to keep the peace, constantly suppress themselves, even when they're angry, because that's what the bladder does. The bladder is a filtering organ, or not organ, function. So it's like when we're pissed off, when we're angry, when we're frustrated, when we're not feeling heard, it has to do more. But when we don't let it out, where you think it's going to go? So the filtering mechanisms will feel it, because now they have to run overtime. Then it gets even set up even more. Then the resentment goes in there as well. So this is all in the filtering organs that we have. So hence bladder constantly showing up. And again, look where the trigger is and when it plays up the most. So it's not because the guy's bladder works different, but how many guys do you know with bladder infections, and how many women do you know? Yet we never ever wonder about it. It's just, it is what it is. So I also see lots of you have your cameras off. Would you mind putting your cameras on? I don't mind seeing your faces at all. I see 5 faces so far. So please, if you don't mind. Oh, hello. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to see you. I'm talking to you. Not that I minded the other 5 so far. Oh, hello. Hello. Awesome. Right. So number 1 is just simply pay attention. So the thing is, when we are out of sync with the physical, it's literally just a dashboard light. Does not mean we're dropping dead, does not mean anything else, but like, oh, I need to check the oil, so let's go and check the oil. And then we just peel it down. We don't need to panic at this stage. Everything that there is can theoretically be reversed, or at least put in a state that it is manageable. So where we normally go, but why do I have it? It's like, well, you're not arguing with your dashboard light in the car. Why would you argue with your dashboard light in your body? So let's get away from this whole like, why do I have bronchitis? Well, obviously you have a trigger. Let's find a trigger instead of arguing with the bronchitis, because that's not going to make it go away, because clearly it's there. So, and this is simply what it is. It is a dashboard light. So take something that it doesn't inflame even more in the meanwhile, and then let's go find a trigger. So this is what is, so first take the panic away. So then what is the function of the body that is body part that is actually being affected right now? So as I just said, if it's the bladder, what's the bladder supposed to do? What's the job of a bladder? It's A, supposed to filter, and B, to make sure that what's not good for us, it's being released, because that's when we go to the loo. So where in life are we not filtering properly, and where we're not letting go what's not good for us. Holding anger in is not good for us, just like holding excitement in is not good for us. It's like a toothpaste tube. If you have a tube of toothpaste, whatever is in it, and you put it on the floor and you put pressure and you stand on it, I promise you it ain't gonna come out where you want it to come out, but it will come out where it finds the weakest spot. And it's the same with our emotions. If we don't make sure it comes out where we want it to come out, it will have to find a space. It can't just be nothing. Energy can't just disappear. It can be the one or the other. It can change, but it can't just be nothing. And so this is why if we know what it is and we say like, hey, but you go that way, you got this. Then it doesn't have to find its own little nooks and crannies. And this is all it is when it comes to health. And so what is the function of it? And literally just say, like, this is what the body's doing, so what does that mean there? So like headaches, people joke about it, but literally half of our headaches is like because we're thinking too much. We think too much and live too little. So get out of your head and have some life. It really helps with headaches. So, because the problem is we are more in our head than anywhere else. We live more on assumptions than actually on life experience. And assumptions always leave us more with fear. So the more you have headaches and migraines and stuff like that, the more you need to have a laugh, the more you need to get out of your head and into your senses. So it's literally like, it's overthinking. What we overheat, if you overheat an engine, guess what's going to happen? It's going to creak, splutter, and sooner or later shut the car down. That's what happens with migraines. Same thing. Then there's always a trigger time as well. So let's say I have irritable bowel syndrome, for example. It wouldn't have started on day one with irritable bowel syndrome. So let's say 6 weeks ago, I had a bit of a tummy ache. And then 2 weeks later, I had a runny tummy. So there will always be like a slow increase till it becomes irritable bowel syndrome in this case. So what happened the few weeks leading up to it, that all of a sudden my body, because it's in reaction, so there must have been something happening before it could react. So by the time I have the body activated in a wrong way or in an imbalanced way, that means there was a trigger before that. So let's say every time my stepchildren visit me, I get my tummy in a knot and my tummy plays up and whatever else because there was some kind of friction and I don't want to put the foot wrong. So every time the kids now come, even though I was fine with them before, all of a sudden my tummy plays up. Or more so, it gets overactivated. Is it the kids? No. Was it what I've attached to the kids? There was an argument between the parents, most likely. So this is like where the trigger then comes in. So the argument between the parents, which was that, oh, you don't look after the stepchildren properly, Bobby rhubarb, was then projected onto that. The person sees the kids and has the physical reaction. So what was playing up to it in that time? Was there anything unusual happening on an emotional, on a traumatic? For kids, very often it can be like changing schools or a parent working away or divorces or simply moving house. Pets or those kind of things. We need to pay attention to that. Then what is the nature of the difficulty? So if it's an inflammation and it means like something's momentarily not sitting right, is it something broken? This is where the bones and so on come in. If it's tissue involved or not, so if it's more an emotional thing or not, which side of the body, we spoke about that. Chakras, those who are familiar with it can look at that as well, which give you more layers of it. But at this stage, I don't want to make it too complicated because, as I said, it can be really pinned down to the finest details. Then what meaning does this body part have to you? Some people are very proud of their eyes, the others very much of their hands or whatever it is. So see what you associate with it as well. That will give you an indication. Then what does it stop you from doing? So, because this is also like, for example, I wanted to play the rugby match, but and I trained so hard and the pressure was on because it would have been the qualifier to be in whatever other team. And the day before I broke the ankle. That means my inner pressure of actually achieving was so incredibly high that it actually shut my body down. Does that make sense? So I could have easily most likely made it, but my fear of not making it and not being able to achieve accordingly. So my fear system and my self-belief system was ultimately not matching my physical abilities and capabilities, so it actually shut it down. So it stopped me from doing that, but with that, it stopped me from failing. So remember, we either want a feeling or we want to avoid a feeling. So his fear of failing was most likely bigger than him wanting to have that. Does that make sense? So we always go for one of the two. It's either avoiding a feeling or wanting a feeling, depending on what's worse or what's the bigger payout for us. That's what we go for. Then also make sure that you are prepared to let go of whatever keeps you out of it. Like sometimes being sick just gives us some extra care from our family. Like all of a sudden hubby does the dishes and does the cooking and brings me tea. And like, I don't mind that part. I'm not telling him I'm feeling better. So it's like, are you prepared to do that? It's kind of like, that's harmless, milk it for an extra day or vice versa. But sometimes that's what kids are doing. They feel emotionally thrown out. All of a sudden they feel sick because they know it's a direct way to get more attention and more mom or more dad around. So they play it accordingly. They can be a bit sick, or like, I'm feeling so sick, I can't go to school. Are you writing a test today? So it's like, it's not about that, but tell me why you really don't want to go to school, that we can actually deal with that. So, but this is like also where we need to start using the language and expressing it accordingly, not just that we can teach our kids, but us. So all of those things is, and the basics of it is like what's there, we somehow created it. And this is about connecting the dots, mind, body, and soul, always together. And there's whole weekend courses I do on that, and those that want to go further into it. But let me just answer some questions for now. Well, I can talk for hours, so that might be dangerous. So let's see. Okay. What about discomfort on the big toe on the right? I've been searching for answers, but nothing found so far. Okay, right foot, big toe. Okay, so right foot is about moving forward. The big toe is always the one that arrives first because it's normally longer than the rest of the toes and will always be there before the rest of your body. So with it, the big toe first is kind of like probing the new environment, probing the new space. So, and if you go in your mind, like, I just want to see if it would be safe going there, it will somehow come out in your big toe. Now, depending now if it's in the front or the side or at the bottom, because if it's on the bottom of the toe, then it's kind of like, will I be able to be stable on it? So this is like probing where you want to go, if it will be stable, because once you put that down, it means the rest of the foot is going to come down with it. If you're just going to put the toe in, it's kind of like testing the waters. So this is kind of, let me just see if I'm going to like this. You're not looking at stability at this stage. You're just kind of like, oh, no, not my temperature, thank you. So this is just like, I'm not too serious about it. I just want to know. But if it's from the bottom, it's like, I want to know if it's safe to put my foot down there, and then the rest that comes with it. So look at if you're planning anything, if you're considering a big change, if you want to go into new territory, it might be with your work, it might be with relationships, it might be with moving countries. A lot of that comes up when with the old immigration stuff going on at the moment. So this is where the big toe is coming in as well. I hope that helped a bit. When it comes to kids with sickness, I said most of things we created, knowingly or unknowingly. Very often people ask me, is there any karmic kind of stuff? And I normally, as a rule of thumb, go like, unless you're born with it, it normally isn't. Because what you bring in is, and again, there's very few exceptions to the rule, I'm generalizing here, but I would say 90% of what you've been born with, you brought in as an unfinished lesson from a previous lifetime. Anything that we establish along the way is already somehow linked to lessons or to growth that you've chosen for this lifetime, because there's already the blueprints, there's already thinking patterns, there's already the attachments and everything with it. So what you bring in is karmic very often, not always, but very often. And what comes anything after that is normally not karmic, again, roughly. So when kids have, I'm just being asked here, what about kids having arthritis? depending on how old the child is as well and where it is obviously them feeling stifled, because that's what arthritis does. And does not mean they're not in a loving environment, does not mean they're not embraced, but they might feel stifled, either because they're a bit overprotected and they're oversafe, or they feel that there is such expectations of them that they can't reach them and they're rather stifle themselves, that they can't fail or can't disappoint people. Also, look up in which areas it plays up the most and what does it stop him or her from doing. If the arthritis stops, for example, your child from participating in sports, then how does your child feel about sports? Is it dying to do sports? And there was restrictions to it, or is he or she not even worried about sports, but dad would like him to play rugby or mom would like him to do whatever. So arthritis got to do with flexibility, and only because the child is small, the body is small, the principle is the same. It's about inflexibility and not feeling flexible enough to either achieve or not achieve, or again, look at the payout if he wants to please or if he doesn't want to disappoint. If he's happy about it, or if he would do it for others. So look at the emotional trigger behind that. Can I recommend reading material on this subject? Totally. So there's lots of them out there. The one that first started getting out there with it was Louise Hay, and you must have heard of the Little Blue Book. It was the first one I got in my fingers years ago, and I found it a bit limited though. It gives you a very good overview by all means. I'm not bashing her on that at all. But I got a bit sensationalized either. But the ones that I use the most is this one. It's by Lise Bourbon. It's Your Body's Telling You Love Yourself. This is the one that I use the most. I will also put those things on my Facebook page later, just for those. I'm not sure if I can do that here. For those that want to get the info on what I've used for it. So this is the one I use the most. It has an A to Z thing in there from pretty much everything you can think of. And it says here, for example, finger disorders. It tells you the physical block, the emotional block, every single finger in it. The toes should be in there as well for the toe lady. And the mental block and the spiritual block and how you can undo that. Because so that is one of my most favorite ones. Another one I use a lot is Debbie Shapiro. It's this one is Your Body Speaks Your Mind. Also a similar kind of concept like the Lise Bourbon one. And there's another one of Debbie Shapiro, and this is Healing Mind, Healing Body. So those are the three I use the most. There's lots of other stuff to read as well, but I don't want to give you too many options, especially when you come in from a new angle. Those will be the ones that give you the most logical, easy to start, but still quick result kind of inputs with that. So there are definitely those, and obviously Mr. and Mrs. Google are there as well, that you can look at that. Okay. I see we're running out of time. Is there any other quick question from anybody that you would like to look at, or that I can clarify for you? Or let's see.
I have a question.
Just write it. When you have a question, please write it in the group chat. Then I can answer it, because otherwise I might just have people talking on top of each other. Ear infections, okay. Depending if it's the right or the left ear, it's what don't I want to hear. If it's the right one, it is also, let's not forget, the right one is the male side of the body. So it's either about things like, I don't want to hear any more instruction. I don't want to be told what to do anymore. I'm over it, because this is like about giving instructions, and it's about decision making or whatever. So this is like when your boss is constantly in your ears telling you what to do, it's most likely going to come in here. Or it can literally be a male in your life. So it can be the husband, the son, whoever, because it's the male side of the body. If it's the left side, it is like either literally a female in your body that's constantly in your ears, or you're not listening to your intuition, because this is also the intuition side of the body. So depending which ear is more affected or plays up the most, and also look what was the trigger before the ear started. Was there a lot of conflict going on, or was like they're a very irritating person around, or whatever it might be. So look at like roughly the week or so before the earache came up, especially if it's a repeated thing with earache. So always look at the time before it played up. Okay, autoimmune system. Okay, there's a lot of like lupus and fibromyalgia and all those kind of things going on. And in a nutshell, because it's also quite a big thing, it's your body going against itself. So where in your life are going against yourself? Are you living a life that honors you, that respects you, that boundaries go hand in hand with autoimmune? Where are your boundaries? Are you honoring yourself? Are you respecting yourself? Are you having a life that with people and environments and setups that honors you and respects you? Or do people get away with doing just anything around you? Or are you being part of situation and allowing to be part of situations that don't honor you? So anything and everything around us can only ever exist out of three reasons. We either co-create it, we feed it, or we allow it. So where are you having that actually going in your life that you, for so long, that your entire autoimmune system is actually eating you up? So autoimmune is like you going against yourself, who you are, and being part of and allowing your own belief system constantly, your inner self-talk. Oh, this is our number one enemy, how we talk to ourselves. We are much nicer to the world than we are to ourselves, and that's got to stop. Because our body shows how we speak to ourselves. If you get up in the morning and tell yourself you're useless, guess what your body is going to tell you? If you get up in the morning and tell you I'm the best thing since sliced bread, and guess what? The world is lucky to see me today. Guess how you're going to strut out of the front door? It makes all the difference. And again, the brain cannot differentiate between fake and fiction. So you faking until you make it actually works because the body does not know the difference. So you telling yourself you're the best thing since sliced bread, the body will give you that. How many people do you know that sometimes they're full of themselves, which I always think is a good thing. And you go like, I don't know, he or she got to that conclusion, but exudes it on every level. And you have others that in your eyes are the most beautiful, stunning, intelligent people, but they don't believe it and they're constantly depressed. And Mrs. World killed herself a few years ago because she felt she was useless. And she was not pretty enough. The whole world decided she was the most beautiful woman and wasn't good enough because she didn't believe it. So what we believe is what we bring to the world. And this whole thing, and those who know me know that I say that all the time, you've got to be full of yourself. The problem is when we're full of everybody else, nothing works. So you need to be full of yourself, because if you don't know how you work, sure as hell you won't know how you work when you're full of everyone else. So get full of yourself, because then you can actually level things out when they don't go. And it's like, and if you don't know how you work, nobody else will know how you work either. So get full of yourself, own it, and get cocky with it, because what you tell yourself is what you bring to the world. Our inner self-talk is our number one health hazard. It's not the environment, it's not the fumes, it's not the COVID, it's what we tell ourselves. Our inner self-talk is our number one health hazard. And that's entirely in our hands. So whatever we believe about ourselves is what our body is telling us, because it's in reaction to it. Every thought that we have, we choose the emotional attachments. So it is on us. So you saying I'm as healthy as can be or not, this is literally a matter of like, yes, you can decide that. And you brainwash yourself into that till it becomes your only reality. Because you telling yourself that you're useless and sick and you can't go anywhere will become your reality as much as the other way around. So you get full of yourself, you brainwash in what you do want and not what you don't want, and you will see your body has no other option but playing along, because it is in reaction. And at the moment you own that energy, the whole universe, the whole world is a reaction mode. So it's not just your body being there. If you hold this energy, you have different opportunities, different people are being drawn to you, and so on. And especially when it comes to empaths, just one last thing about empath. I think I said last thing about 5 times. If you're an empath, which we have lots of them, but you don't have boundaries, that's pure self-destruction. So I know so many people, males and females, it's not an exclusive female thing, that like, I can't help it, I'm an empath. I'm like, no. This is like, I'm an empath and I've just decided to be a martyr. That is a choice. So, you know, the moment you know you're an empath, you have a choice. If you don't know it, it's a different story. So you've got to have your boundaries up, because otherwise all you're going to find for the rest of your life is the reason why you got the short end of the stick, and you can make that a career too. It's a choice with very different outcomes. So boundaries is not against somebody. Boundaries is for you to make sure that you can be your best possible version of who you are, because you can't give what you're not. Plus, it actually avoids friction. Very often people think boundaries bring friction. It avoids it, because if it's clear from day one, it doesn't even get to the point of friction and fights. So what you think of yourself is how you feel, what you look like, how healthy you're going to be, and how well you're going to be balanced. So, and I think this is the main thing, we need to own it. And we talked ourselves in the first version of how we feel, so we can at any time when we choose to brainwash ourselves and talk ourselves into the second, third, fourth, or fifth version. So whenever we don't like it anymore, it's on us to change it. Unless, of course, the pad is bigger with the old version, then we won't. But that's on us. And the moment we own it, it's not because we want to point fingers. Only if we own it can we shift it. I can't take your car out of your garage and do with it what I want. But if it's in my garage with my car, I can do what I like. And if I want it here or here, anytime I get in a car, I can choose where I want it. I can't do that with your car. So as long as I don't own my car and park it in my garage and I got the keys to it, I have no say over this car. I can hope you give me a lift every now and then, but that's about it. I have zero say over it, and I will not stand in my power. And was that my power, with my health and everything, I will always be linked to somebody else's decision. And that's just no good. Right, so number one with your health is tell yourself you're fine and you're the best thing since sliced bread, and that you're so worthy of it. And why wouldn't you? You're born worthy. There's nothing to prove to no one and nothing, and not to you either. You run the gauntlet already, otherwise you wouldn't have been born. So we're done with that long ago. So we need to get over that. Nothing to prove to anybody. Now you just need to own it and ace it. Just strut your stuff. You're making this way too complicated. So, drug addiction. Okay. Drug addiction is it's a replacement thing, pretty much. Nobody takes drugs because they like the taste of drugs. Drugs come in, no matter which drug it is, because we want to suppress something. So again, this is like we either want a feeling or we want to avoid a feeling. So people take drugs because they want to escape feeling depressed or horrible or hopeless, or they want to get that high, which they haven't figured out they can find in any other way, or they want to feel some kind of state of happiness or euphoria or whatever, which they haven't established in their life, or feel they can't establish in their life. So drugs it doesn't matter if it's the legal drugs like alcohol or cigarettes or whatever it is, it's all linked to emotions at the end of the day, because let's face it, none of those drugs really taste nice. So, and most people that even taste wine or those stuff that we very much socialized as such for the first time, it is an acquired taste. So it's like, yes, once you like it, you really like it. But then again, it's like you have it because when you drink lots of wine, you either get very happy because you forget other stuff that you stress about because you haven't learned to control your mind. So it's always a replacement. And the more I take that, the more I have quick access to it, the less I feel I'm in control to establish it without that specific tool. It's kind of like when people take the fast lane to spirituality. And kind of like, unless I take my mushrooms and smoke myself up, I can't be spiritual. Well, then you still got to do the footwork. It's that simple. And so drugs comes in with that and has a lot of side effects. So the longer I take it, the less I believe I can do it, the less I believe I can establish it without, the more my happiness is now in the hand of a synthetic drug with that and other people. So I actually systematically give my power away. But any kind of drug use and abuse is actually not standing in my power, not being able to stand it, or not believing it. But the drug itself holds no, the drug itself is neutral. Some of the drugs used to be medicine, depending on how it's being used. So everything is neutral until we attach something to it. And depending on what we use it for. Right, I'm definitely going to stop this now. Otherwise, I'm going to keep you here whole Sunday, and it's still Sunday after all. Thanks so much to everybody for joining in. I hope you got something from it. I will put the book stuff on my Facebook page. It's just under my name. You will find it. Chrissy, thanks so much for setting it all up. Wait, I need to unmute you. Have you unmuted yourself?
Heike, may I thank you for this, 90 minutes. We could have gone on for 2 hours of great inspiration. And I loved your image of the dashboard. We need to pay much more attention to those warning lights, as you say, and find that balance, mind, body, heart, spirit. And as you say, befriend ourselves and look at the fullness in our lives. You've given us so many important reminders and tools to embrace these difficult times and ourselves. So thank you so much.
It's all about embracing us. Well, thank you so much for having me, and thanks so much for everybody to being and sharing it with me. And thanks, Chrissy, for keeping one of my favorite places going. Really
well, Heike, if it weren't for the group, and thank you so much, every one of you, for supporting us, and of course our teachers. Heike, you were so willing to come on board and help us. And we're just keeping the place steady. If Lean's still there, she's doing an amazing job and our staff in keeping the place ready to open. So thank you.
Awesome.
May we get through this. May we get through this.
Thanks so much. Lots of love to all of you. Stay well and stay full of yourself. Bye.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.